My mother-in-law poured something strange into my drink when she thought I wasn't looking. "Special cocktail for my favorite son-in-law," she said with a smile. I thanked her and quietly switched glasses with her husband, who never missed a chance to criticize my career. 4 to 5 minutes later. "My name is David Carter, 32 years old. I'm an independent photographer based in Austin, Texas. I built my business from scratch: weddings, wildlife, magazine spreads. The kind of work that actually pays if you're good at it. And I am. But to my in-laws, especially Susan, my wife's mother, what I did was never enough. How's that little photography hobby going?" Her husband Richard would ask at family dinners, not even hiding his tone. He was an ex-banker, a man who measured success in square footage, golf club memberships, and mutual funds. Every Sunday dinner at their place was the same. Susan would fuss over her daughter, and Richard would grill me about money. My wife, Emma, would squeeze my hand under the table, her quiet way of saying sorry. I know. I had just returned from a week-long wildlife assignment in Alaska. Cold winds, deep snow, long hikes, just to capture rare footage of wolves for a magazine feature. I was exhausted, but Emma begged. "We can't miss Mom's birthday dinner. Just a couple of hours." I agreed. I should have trusted the knot I felt in my stomach when Susan cornered me in the kitchen. The way she looked over her shoulder before handing me that drink. The tiny shake in her hand as she smiled. "I made it just for you." Something didn't feel right, but I had no idea just how bad it was going to get. Emma and I met 6 years ago at an art show where my photos were on display. She was finishing grad school in environmental science. We clicked instantly. She got my passion for capturing the world through a lens, and I admired her love for protecting it. Her parents were another story. From day one, Richard made it clear he expected someone better for his daughter. A man with a briefcase, a salary, a pension plan. Someone like him. Susan was sneakier. She'd compliment my photos while asking, "So when are you planning to get a real job?" She'd invite me to family events, then introduce me to her friends as Emma's photographer friend, not her son-in-law. I tried to win them over. Expensive wine at dinners, copies of my published work, name-dropping clients. Nothing changed. Last Christmas, I overheard Susan on the phone. Emma could have married Daniel, the orthopedic surgeon. But no, she picked the creative one. The way she said creative made it sound like an illness. Richard was more direct. When we told him we were trying for a baby, he pulled me aside. "Kids cost money. Maybe think about real work before bringing one into the world." I never told Emma these things. She loved her parents, and I didn't want her caught in the middle. So I smiled, shook hands, complimented Susan's cooking, and kept my mouth shut. But there were signs, little ones I should have paid more attention to. Susan pulling Emma away whenever I mentioned work wins. Forgetting to include me in family photos. Richard suggesting therapy for Emma's impulsive decisions while looking straight at me. I ignored it all. Thought with time, they'd come around. I was wrong. That Friday, I got back from Alaska with frozen fingers and enough content to cover 3 months of bills. I showered, dressed up, and drove us to their big house in the suburbs. Dinner started as usual. Richard bragged about a recent investment. Susan fussed over napkins. Emma's brother Mark and his wife Rachel chatted politely. I sat back, sipped my beer, and counted the minutes. Then came dessert. Sangria, my specialty. Susan beamed, disappearing into the kitchen. I followed to help, and that's when I saw it. 2 glasses, separate from the rest. Susan, back-toned, pouring something from a small vial into just one of them. Not fruit, not syrup, something clear. Something she quickly hid when she heard me enter. "Oh, David, I've got these," she said too cheerfully. "This one's for you. Special mix." The glass had a faint, oily shimmer on top. My throat tightened. "Let me carry them," I said casually, taking both glasses. Back in the dining room, Richard barely looked up from his phone. "Drink," I offered, placing the tampered glass in front of him. I claimed I wasn't drinking, just water with dessert. 4 to 5 minutes later, Richard was pale, sweating, clutching his stomach. He bolted to the bathroom. The sounds that followed were unpleasant. Susan's face went pale. She looked at me. I looked back. In that moment, we both knew exactly what happened. And she knew that I knew. I didn't make a scene. Just sat there, ate my cake, and watched Emma rush after her father. In the chaos, Susan blamed the seafood. Bad shellfish, she stuttered. I quietly took the untouched glass home. That night, I called my old client Jason, a chemist who runs a private lab. Can you run a test? I asked. Personal or professional? He asked. Family, I said. 3 days later, he called. David, that drink had benzos in it. Strong stuff. Would have knocked you out for hours. I didn't tell Emma. Not yet. Instead, I started digging. Susan had prescriptions for Xanax from 3 doctors. Double dosing for years. I found rumors. Neighbors saying she acted strange at events. Stories her family worked hard to bury. Then the perfect opportunity came. Mom needs some pictures for her social profile, Emma said one day. She asked if you'd take them. I agreed. That Saturday, I arrived alone. Camera bag in one hand, a sealed envelope in the other. Susan, I said, before we start, please read this. Toxicology report. Prescription records. Her hands shook. This is ridiculous, she whispered. We both know it's not, I said calmly. Why? I asked. Her face turned cold. You're not good enough for my daughter. You never will be. A man should provide, not play with cameras. So poisoning me makes me what? A lesson. I asked. I just wanted you to miss that stupid gallery show. So Emma sees you can't be counted on. I let her words hang. Here's what's next, I said. You'll tell Richard the truth, and you'll start treating me with basic respect. She laughed. Emma would never believe you. Maybe not, but she'll believe the lab results, the pharmacy records, the people you wronged. I left. No photos taken. That night, Susan called Emma, crying. David was rude, aggressive. I'm so hurt. Emma asked me what happened. I showed her everything. She didn't want to believe it, but she couldn't deny the proof. Still, something broke between us. Emma stopped talking much, spent more time at her parents'. I focused on work, waiting. Then a package arrived. No name. Inside, a USB drive, and a sticky note. You should see this. Rachel. It was footage from security cameras in Susan's kitchen. The truth. All of it. Susan adding the drug, me entering, Richard drinking it. Then, later, Susan yelling at Richard for drinking the wrong glass. Him shouting back, "This isn't the first time you've done this." I watched it over and over. Then I called Rachel. Why are you sending me this? Because they tried to destroy my marriage too, she said softly. I couldn't let them do it again. What followed was the unraveling of a lifetime of lies. The next day, I compiled everything. The lab report, the security footage, Susan's prescription records, screenshots of nasty texts she'd sent me over the years. I still hadn't told Emma everything. I needed her to see the full picture, to understand this wasn't about one bad drink. This was a pattern. So I invited her brother Mark and his wife Rachel to dinner. I didn't tell Emma why. After we ate, I connected my laptop to the TV. There's something I need you all to see. We watched. Susan pouring the drink, Richard drinking it, the fight afterward, the gaslighting. Emma sat frozen. Mark shook his head over and over. That's not my mom, he whispered. This is to be edited. Rachel put her hand on his. They did the same thing to us. Mark, why do you think they only accepted me after I got pregnant? Because now they had leverage. Mark said nothing, just stared blankly. Later that night, Emma crawled into bed, silent for a while. Then she whispered, I need time to process this, but I believe you, and I'm sorry I doubted you. The next morning, Susan called. Sweetheart, she said cheerfully to Emma on speakerphone. Your father and I were thinking you should come stay with us for a few days. You know, clear your head. Marriage can be hard, and a little distance can help. Emma didn't hesitate. I've seen the videos. Silence. What videos? Susan asked. The ones where you drugged David. The ones where you and Dad plotted to ruin our marriage. Another pause. Emma, whatever David's showing you has been manipulated. You know he's always been jealous of our family. No, Mom, Emma interrupted, her voice calm. We're coming over tonight. All of us. Mark, Rachel, David, me, and we're going to talk. No more lies. She hung up, then turned to me. They'll deny everything. They'll try to twist it. I nodded. I know. But this time, they're going to meet the real me. The one who doesn't just take pictures, but tells stories. That night, we arrived at their house. Mark and Rachel were already seated in the living room. Richard greeted us, all smiles. I understand there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I replied, setting up my tripod. I'm recording this for the family archives. Susan gasped. This is a private conversation. Exactly, I said. Family business. And I'm family, even if you've spent years trying to erase that. For the next 2 hours, I laid out everything. The drink, the reports, the videos, the emails, even stories from Emma's ex-boyfriends, people her parents had driven away. Susan and Richard denied it all, called me unstable, said I was manipulating everyone. With each denial, I pressed play on another clip. Their expressions shifted, from arrogance to discomfort to fear. Finally, Emma stood. I love you both. You're my parents. But what you've done to us, to me, is unforgivable. You don't get to control my life anymore. Mark added, we're not kids. We choose our own lives, our own partners. You need to accept that. Susan began to cry, not from guilt, but from the realization that she was losing her grip. Richard just sat in silence, staring blankly. As we prepared to leave, I handed Richard a USB drive. This is everything. Videos, emails, statements. It's yours. What's this supposed to mean? He asked suspiciously. It means I'm not going to ruin your name. Not unless you give me a reason to. But if you ever interfere again, if you try to sabotage my marriage or control Emma, copies of that drive go to your golf club, your business partners, your entire social circle. For the first time since I'd met him, Richard looked at me with something that resembled respect. I underestimated you, he said quietly. Yes, I replied. You did. 6 months passed. Emma and Mark started therapy to deal with the emotional damage. Susan and Richard kept their distance. They sent occasional texts, kept things civil, but respected boundaries. Then, during the holidays, they invited us to dinner. A fresh start. The card read, Emma wanted to go. They are still my parents, she said. Maybe they are trying. I agreed, but I wasn't naive. We arrived. Everything looked normal. Susan had cooked. Richard was charming. He even asked about my latest photography project, with what sounded like real interest. After dinner, Richard pulled me aside. I have a proposition, he said, pouring me a drink. Photography has been good to you, but have you thought about branching out? I could bring you into my firm. Good salary. Junior partner. I took the glass, but didn't drink. Why would you do that? Your family, he said, and I respect the way you protected Emma. That's what a man does. I set the glass down. Thanks, but no. Be reasonable, David, he said, voice tightening. This is an olive branch. It's another attempt at control, I said, and you hate that Emma loves me just the way I am. He leaned closer, voice low. Everyone has a price. Not me, I said, walking away. Back in the dining room, Susan was showing Emma old photo albums. You were always so happy living here, she said. Emma caught my eye. She could tell something had happened. She stewed and cleared her throat. Everyone, I have something to share. We turned to her. We're having a baby. I'm 3 months pregnant. The room went silent. Susan gasped, then rushed over, tears in her eyes. Richard approached more slowly. Congratulations, he said stiffly. Thank you, I replied, then leaned in. This child will never be a pawn in your games. Ever. He said nothing, just nodded once. 3 weeks later, a letter came from Richard's lawyer. Inside, the deed to the house we were renting, and a trust fund set up for our unborn baby. No note, no conditions, just silence. It wasn't an apology. Richard didn't know how to apologize, but it was an acknowledgement. We had won. Our daughter was born in July. We named her Ella after my grandmother. Susan and Richard came to visit. They brought gifts, held Ella, took photos, then left quietly. No speeches, no advice, no power plays. They still hadn't changed, but they had accepted, finally, that they couldn't change us. One night, as I was editing photos in my studio, Emma walked in, baby in her arms. "Mom called," she said. "They want us to come for Christmas. What do you want to do?" I asked. "We'll go, but with boundaries. We stay at a hotel. We leave when we want, and no alone time with Ella." "Sounds fair," I said. She sat beside me, gently bouncing the baby. "You know, I used to think being successful meant making my parents proud, earning their approval." She looked at me, but now I know it's about making choices I'm proud of, protecting the people I love. 2 weeks before Christmas, another envelope arrived. Inside, a glossy company brochure, Richard's firm's annual report. My photographs were all over it. Landscapes, portraits, architectural shots. My work, done on my terms. Tucked inside was a small note. "Hired the best photographer I know. Thought you'd want a copy." No signature, but it didn't need one. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't friendship. It was respect. And for once, that was enough. Perhaps it wasn't an apology, but it was something, a quiet admission, that I was successful on my own terms, not his. I didn't call to thank him. There was no need. We both understood. This wasn't about gratitude. It was about boundaries, a new reality. That spring, I opened my first gallery in downtown Asheville. At the grand opening, Emma stood beside me, our daughter, Ella, in her arms. My parents flew in from Oregon. Old friends and clients came, too, filling the space with laughter, admiration, and support. They weren't just looking at photos. They were looking at a life I built from the ground up. Toward the end of the night, Gerald and Susan walked in. They didn't stay long. Susan held Ella for a few moments, but only while Emma watched closely. Gerald walked up to me. He looked at the photographs, then shook my hand, nodded. No advice, no judgment, just a quiet approval. And then they left. As Emma and I locked up the gallery, she looked at me and asked, "Do you think they've changed?" I paused, thought about it, then said, "No, but they've accepted that they can't change us, and sometimes that's enough." Later that night, we sat on the porch. The stars were coming out over the hills. Ella was fast asleep upstairs, and for the first time, I found the words I had never been able to say out loud before. I hadn't won by playing Gerald and Susan's game. I won by refusing to play it at all. I stood my ground, protected what mattered, and built a life on my own definition of success. Not with control, not with schemes, but with honesty, with quiet persistence. And in the end, that was the sweetest revenge of all. Living well, on my terms, with the people I love beside me.